Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. It's Roshan Mohammed Salih here, the editor of Five Pillars, and welcome to The Big Picture. And I kept my promise. I have managed at last to do another episode of The Big Picture after 2 weeks. I said I'd do it bi-weekly. I've broken that promise many times, but alhamdulillah, I managed to do it this time. And I hope that you guys will keep me to account and help me to keep up a regular momentum with these shows, inshallah. So today, brothers and sisters, we're talking about two topics. The main topic we're going to kick off with is basically Qatar, the World Cup, and Islam. And we'll specifically be asking the question, has Qatar compromised on Islam to host this World Cup? Now, we've all seen the scenes of alcohol everywhere and LGBT rules being relaxed. Women going around in immodest dress, and the extravagance and perhaps the waste of money of it all. Also, Israelis are in Doha at the moment as well, which normally isn't the case. Is there any excuse from this from an Islamic perspective? Obviously, we've seen the dawah aspect of all this being trumpeted. We've seen Zakir Naik arriving in the country, other, du'at arriving there. Allegedly, hundreds of people have been converting, every week. So does this balance out the negative aspects? That's the kind of stuff we'll be asking. I'll be speaking to an Islamic scholar shortly to get the Islamic angle on this. I'll also be talking to a friend of mine who used to live in Qatar. Now, the second topic we have today is, I guess, the biggest British Muslim story of the week, and that is the LGBT controversy in Wood Green Academy in a town in Wednesbury near Walsall. So we're going to ask, is the LGBT ideology being forced upon Muslims in British schools, and what can Muslim children and parents do about this? And we'll be speaking to an expert on RSC a little bit later on in the program. Keep your comments coming in, brothers and sisters. I already see a few comments coming in. Keep them coming in. I'll endeavor to read the best of them out, inshallah. And also, I'll be kind of redoing that experiment I did last time, where I'm going to be inviting you to join the stream after around 7:15 p.m. I'll put the link and I'll pin it to the top of the YouTube page. So inshallah, you can join the stream if you're brave enough. We'll treat you with kid gloves. We'll treat you very politely. So please come on, share your views with us, agree with us, disagree with us, praise us, criticize us, whatever. And inshallah, we'll have some fun. Super Chats, brothers and sisters, is activated. So please do donate. This isn't a donation show, so I won't be going on about money, money, money. However, if you do enjoy our work, if you do want to fund our work and help us to do what we do, please do donate via Super Chats. And we'll be very grateful indeed. Okay, let's kick the show off properly now, talking about the Qatar World Cup and Islam. I'm going to play out a few videos, first of all. Now, as we all know, alcohol is usually restricted in Qatar to kind of certain higher-end hotels. But for the World Cup, the rules have been relaxed. And there are around 200 venues around Qatar where you can buy alcohol, drink alcohol, get drunk, etc., etc., as we shall see in the following video.
Why is that?
¿Qué pasó, güey? ¿La cuarta?
Well, I think football and beer go together. It's part of the culture, and I think we're glad that we can finally have a little. But we were very worried, but luckily we have here, so now we can enjoy. Salud!
So now we have the beer. This is finally the start of the tournament. Everything will get better. Now we have beer.
Yes.
It's a really good beer.
Without beer, it's nothing. We need beer.
So, alcohol available in the fan zones in the Muslim country of Qatar. And I should also say, I should put some health warnings on these videos, because obviously you're seeing a few scenes which aren't very pretty in our eyes, and perhaps even Islamic. So look away now if you don't want to see more of that kind of stuff, because believe it or not, there was a massive rave in Doha last night.
Absolute vibes is the best thing I've ever been to.
It's good piss up, lad. It's good piss up. Let's ride, pal.
It's so good. It's the best thing that's ever happened in Doha.
So I could play out more of that video, but I think I'll stop there. You get the picture. On the other hand, we have to balance it out, because very famous duat from around the world have been coming to Doha, as we can see in the following video, with Dr. Zakir Naik's arrival from Malaysia to Doha a few days ago. All right, so before I get my guest on, let's read out a few of your comments. Keep your comments coming in, inshallah. I can see a few people are upbraiding me for kind of getting the time wrong. Apologies, I think I scheduled it wrong on YouTube. Okay, so MAK says, what principles? They never had any to begin with. The entire economy is based on riba, the largest American military base, and no implementation of Sharia in Qatar. He says that the World Cup is the least of Qatar's problems. Lots of salam alaikums from everyone, so I'll just give a general wa alaikum salam to everybody instead of reading out every salam alaikum. Aurelian says, I think that Qatar has not compromised Islam to host the World Cup, but you haven't explained why, have you, Aurelian? That would be interesting. Have you said this? No. Let me skip a few comments. 786 Nath, who's a regular watcher of the Big Picture, says, why are Westerners fascinated with Muslim backsides and unveiling our women? That's the kind of thing that my upcoming guest, Faisal Bodhi, might say. That's straight out of his mouth, I think. And there's a few more comments. Let me read one or two out. Qatar should have made all the women and gay people wear the headscarf, okay? And one more comment. Big up to FIFA. Okay. All right. Keep your comments coming in, brothers and sisters, questions. I'm someone who's lived in Qatar. My upcoming guest is someone who's lived in Qatar as well. So please keep the questions and the comments coming in. We'll endeavor to answer. And given that one more comment has come in, let me read it out. Asmos says, didn't Qatar vote at the UN to prevent debate on the Uyghur issue? I'm not sure. Qatar shouldn't be respected because it's a Muslim country. Hopefully, this will mark the end of Muslim countries hosting major tournaments. Yeah, I think I'm rapidly coming to the conclusion that the price is too high to pay Islamically for any Muslim country to host a major sporting tournament. Anyway, my guests may well disagree with me. Let's get the first of them on now. And it is Sheikh Tawqir Ishaq, who is joining us from Warwickshire, I believe. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Brother Roshan? Okay?
I'm fine. Have you been watching any of the football?
I'm afraid I'm so sorry. I've been too busy. I'm so sorry. I haven't seen it.
Okay, no problem. No, it's probably a good thing, not a bad thing. Okay, so let me introduce the Sheikh before we get into the questions, inshallah. So Sheikh Tawqir is an international lecturer in Islamic sciences, and he's currently the head of halal certification for the Halal Regulatory Commission. And as I said before, he's joining us from Warwickshire today. Sheikh, if I can get straight into it, and yeah, the question this show is posing is, has Qatar compromised Islam to host the World Cup? What is your view on that?
You know, I'm not sure why people expect so much from these Arab countries. They are monarchies. They're not really democracies, although that's neither here nor there. They're not implementing Sharia. I mean, they're in terms of their population prays and fasts and does the Hajj and wears Islamic dress, but what's in the heart of the governments doesn't seem very Islamic. We see what's happening around the world, and we see now what's happening in Qatar itself. It's completely un-Islamic what's going on in Qatar, and it's also shocking or not surprising as to the victimization of Qatar. Nobody, people want to pollute this World Cup. That nobody wanted to be successful. They wanted to have a stain, whereby they're allowed to attack Muslim values and Muslim principles and Islamic principles, and they've chosen a couple of these issues: human rights and alcohol and LGBT. They've chosen a few issues, and they've prepared them and planned them in advance. It hasn't just happened spontaneously, because they can't see any good news from Muslims or Muslim countries. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah. I must admit, I think that a lot of people who perhaps were critical of Qatar in the past are tending now to support Qatar simply because of the Western media onslaught. But I want to kind of, and I got you on here to kind of educate us about the Islamic angle, because I heard one of my colleagues earlier on today. He told me that, even in Muslim countries, during the years of the Khilafah, etc., non-Muslims were allowed to do, some haram things in their own areas, and discreetly, I guess, as well. So, for example, the drinking alcohol, we saw it in the fan zone there. So it's restricted to a fan zone. Islamically, could you possibly say that could be acceptable Islamically, as long as it's not sold to Muslims?
I can't say it's completely acceptable. You have to have valid reasons for doing so, and hosting an entertainment event is not a valid reason. If you look at the 10 things that the Prophet ﷺ forbade regarding alcohol, 10 things he forbade, from the drink itself to the people who prepare the grapes, the people who buy, the people who sell, the people who carry, the people to whom it is carried, the people who profit, the people who drink, even the person who pours it. He's gone through into so much detail. So how could you possibly have that system in a so-called Muslim country whereby no Muslim should touch it from the borders until it comes in and is served? And what sort of example are you setting for the population and for their children, that you're allowing these raves? I was shocked at the videos actually that you've shown. You're allowing these raves to take place. We have to question the intentions. What are your intentions for allowing this? Is it just to host a World Cup for your own satisfaction, or to show the world how great you are? I don't know. Is it for dawah? Well, you know what? You can spend $300 billion in far better ways for dawah than hosting a World Cup, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, some people even on the stream, Sheikh Isaac, they're Sheikh Tawkir, they're saying that look, give Qatar some credit. There is a massive dawah effort happening at the moment as we speak, and by some accounts, 500 people have already converted since last week. So, does that balance out some of the criticism in your view?
Do you know what? $300 billion could solve most of world poverty for 2 to 3 years. I think that would be a huge dawah effort rather than hosting this World Cup. If that was their intention, I don't think that was their intention. Their intention was, they love football. Arabs absolutely love football. And rather than buy race horses and race them against each other, one billionaire races his horse against another billionaire, now they're buying football clubs. And they're competing with each other. My football club will beat your football club on Saturday. And now Qatar has probably looked at this and thought, well, rather than buy a football club, we're going to buy the whole World Cup. We're going to show everybody else what we can do. Yeah, logistically, it's probably been very successful. The amount of money pumped in all the stadium, absolutely wonderful, beautiful, on time, all air conditioned facilities, the infrastructure. A great engineering job. Well done. But in terms of dawah, I'm sorry, I can't justify spending that much money and allowing that many haram things. There's enough haram going on in the world, all right? And we want to promote a little bit more. We want to host a little bit more, Haram.
Sheikh Takir, can you answer this question directly from Leo Messi, not the real Leo Messi, I'm sure. Ask the Sheikh, may Allah bless him, what's the difference between Qatar allowing alcohol for non-Muslim tourist residents and the Khalifa or Khilafa allowing Dhimmi communities to drink alcohol? What's the difference?
You see, these communities were present and were resident and were being protected by the Islamic State. There's a big difference. This is hosting a huge entertainment festival. That's a massive difference. You're not looking after a community in terms of their protection or their residency or their security or their livelihoods or their welfare. This is a completely different scenario. And my issue is not mainly that. My issue is I'm not surprised that this has happened. My issue is what's the intention behind this? If it was dawah, then this was not the way. If it was hosting a World Cup, and by the way, we'll do a bit of dawah, what else do you expect from these Arab countries? They're Muslim in terms of their population. They're not Muslim in terms of their politics or their laws.
Yeah. What do you make of the LGBT laws being relaxed for the World Cup?
I'm less objectionable to that. I tell you why. We have to do dawah to people. Now, this is a good way to do dawah, to actually welcome people, but welcome people in such a way, saying, look, we're welcoming you as hosts, but we don't agree with your ideology and with your morality. And because they've said that, thank goodness, a lot of LGBT people have kept away. But they should have made these conditions right at the beginning. LGBT is a huge issue here in the UK. I know you're coming. You're going to discuss this topic later on, but the Arab countries are just very quiet on this, and Muslim countries are mostly very quiet on this. It's not that people have stopped us speaking. We have stopped ourselves speaking about it. We've silenced ourselves. What are we afraid of? Why are we afraid to promote Islam? If this whole thing was on dawah, all right, you would know that once you start dawah, you're going to keep loads of people away because they're not going to like what you're going to say, right? So in terms of their intentions, I don't think their intentions were dawah based. I might be wrong, but I think their intentions were, part of the Arab culture is we got loads of money. We want the world to love us.
Yeah, my suspicion, and it's only my own opinion, is that they've kind of invited the du'at in to kind of as a PR job because they know they're going to get a lot of bad PR from Muslims. If you were invited to go to Qatar to give dawah, would you have done it?
I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't mind going, but I would also say what I'm saying now. I wouldn't be afraid to say it. And I'd say, I'm sorry, this is what Islam says. And, if you're not going to follow Islamic morality or divine morality, then you're on the road to destruction. You have to say these things out loud sometimes. And we shouldn't be afraid of what other countries will do. Qatar has invested billions in the UK economy, and look how it's been treated. It's a lesson. It's a lesson for all Muslim governments in inverted commas. All right, the dislike and distrust and hatred of Islam is deep, and money won't make people like you, because they might like your hosting them. They might like the buildings you construct. They might like your honesty and hygiene and all this, but they will never like your kalima. They will never like your ideology. Okay? Yeah, they'll put up with Quran being read at the beginning of a football match. Yes, very nice. Thank you very much. Okay, but that's a great opportunity to do that. Well done. All right. So I think now they have this, they should make full use of the opportunity for dawah. And it's very sad that you see these scenes in a so-called Muslim country. It's very, very sad, but not unexpected, especially looking at what happened in other countries where concerts are happening almost on a monthly basis.
Yeah. So Sheikh Takir, would you say overall that, Muslim nations, we shouldn't get involved in hosting these international tournaments because the price is too high Islamically?
Well, I would judge it. I would look at it from an Islamic point of view. Obviously, these people may not look at it from an Islamic point of view. If your intention was dawah, 300 billion can build, I don't know, 20 hospitals around the world. How much dawah can, saving somebody's life because we are Muslims, we want to help you. That dawah would change countries and populations. But they haven't even thought of it like that. No, they're looking at it from the Western mindset. What's happened to our Islamic mindset? What's happened to Quran and Sunnah? What's happened to our 5 times prayer? We have to now ask the question, are we really proper Muslims? We have to ask that question now. It's got to that stage. And I'm sorry I'm having to say it, but that's a question we have to ask.
Okay. Well, Sheikh, I'm really glad you came on today to kind of educate us about this. Now, you are free to leave now if you're busy. I know that you're a very busy man, but also you're free to stay if you would like to. We're going to continue the discussion with Faisal Bodhi, and then we're going to talk about the LGBT issue a bit later on. So I'll leave it up to you, Sheikh. Do you need to leave now?
I'd like to stay for a little while because I'm very interested in what your guests have to say.
Okay, all right. So I'll keep you on the screen as well while I talk to Faisal, and if there are any questions to the Sheikh, please do ask them, and I'll flash them up on the screen. So Sheikh Tawqir is going to stay with us for a little while, but let me get my friend Faisal Bodhi on. Assalamu alaikum, Faisal. How are you doing?
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We can't see you that well. It's like, is there a light you can put on behind your face? Is very. I know it's normally quite dark, but it's very, very, very dark. Is there a light you can put on?
I'm trying my best. I've got my phone light next to me, but I mean that's about as good as it's going. Unfortunately, it's the only quiet room I've got in the house at the moment. I've got 6 children, so it's a bit difficult to find a quiet
6 children, mashallah. Wow, handful.
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
All right, we can hear you at least. Even if we can't see you, we can hear you. We can just about see you.
Thank you.
All right, Faisal, let me introduce you before I get into the questions. So the reason why I've got Faisal on today is because he used to live in Qatar, like myself. In fact, we were working for Al Jazeera at the same time. So he knows the country well. He knows the mindset well. So Faisal used to be a full-time journalist, and then he went into other things. But he's currently the press officer for the IHRC. He's a massive football fan, and as I say, he's an ex-Qatar resident. And before I get into the questions, I should say that we just have had a super chat of $20 from Nice 1149SS. I just want to highlight that AJ Plus, which is part of Al Jazeera News Company owned by Qatar, is one of the earliest supporters of the Alphabet movement, even before gay marriage was legal in the US. Yes, Al Jazeera Arabic tends to be more Islamic, whereas Al Jazeera English, and especially AJ Plus, seems to be extremely westernized. I think that's Qatar playing off their constituencies, appealing to the Sunni Muslims and appealing to the West. They're the 2 main constituencies. Qatar plays this double game all the time. So it has the haram stuff like the alcohol and the raves, but it also has the duat coming in. So this is what Qatar does, in my opinion. Jazakallah khair for that donation. Brother or sister, I'm not sure. Mate, weigh heavy on your scales. We really appreciate it. Okay, so Faisal, I've introduced you. Let me get into, initial question. What's your gut feeling when you see those scenes of depravity and debauchery? As a Muslim, what's your gut feeling, Faisal?
I've got mixed feelings about it all, really. I mean, there was an interesting question one of the viewers posed earlier, the difference between other religious communities being allowed to live according to their own values and their own religious beliefs, and I do share the view of Sheikh Tawqir there, that there is a difference, and we do need to differentiate between people who are just coming in for a temporary purpose, for visiting, for to attend a tournament, and people who actually live in a Muslim jurisdiction. But I hope nobody's going to be offended here, but I mean, it's a bit like prostitution, isn't it? The Qataris, it's like a prostitute saying, well, I'm selling my body, but my soul's intact. Well, you can't sell your body without compromising your soul. And that's what the Qataris and all the other regimes in the neighborhood have done. So, once you sell your soul, or once, we know Qatar is a client state, a vassal state, and only got independence from Britain in 1971, and the raison d'être of Qatar and the monarchy there is to retain power and self-preservation. And we know why they've hosted the World Cup. They're very rich. They're blessed with an abundance of natural gas, like the other monarchies, the ruling families in the region, and all other rich people like to show off, and it's like a beauty pageant, isn't it? So how do we get one up on all the other regimes in the area? The Qataris have sponsored various football clubs, but so have the Saudis now and the Emiratis. But so this is one way they can show off and basically show the rest of the world that we've got the top prize here. You can't. There's no beating this. We've got the World Cup. Just it's one-upmanship. And it's again, it throws up a host of associated issues. The primary reason for the tournament, hosting the tournament, is because Qatar likes to punch above its weight. It likes to show off.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little peninsula nation, and but everything else is a sideshow. So yes, while dawah is being done, while people are converting, all this other stuff seems to be peripheral. I mean, it'd be nice if 300 billion or whatever it is being spent on alleviating poverty in the Muslim world, supporting Muslim causes, and all the other essential needs that are present at the moment. But unfortunately, it's yet another example of an unnecessary extravagance on the part of the Arab regimes.
Parina asks me personally, Assalamu alaikum everyone, wa alaikum salam. Parina, Brother Ocean in Qatar. Yes, I was meant to go, but it just didn't happen. There are many reasons for that. I won't go into it at the moment. I'm extremely disappointed. I know I should be there, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Faisal, you obviously lived in Qatar for a few years. You kind of understand the mentality. I guess Qatari society is split between the locals and the foreigners, the migrant workers. And I think the locals are probably about 10% of the population, the Qatari natives, and everyone else is 90%. And the majority of everyone else are probably kind of South Asian migrant workers. How will they be viewing? I mean, how will the Qataris be looking at all this negative publicity? And how will they be viewing what's going on at the moment? And on the other hand, will some of the migrant workers be secretly pleased about the negative publicity? Because I guess their condition has improved a bit, right?
I mean, from some of what I've seen on social media, I mean, I don't consume much mainstream TV these days, but what I've seen on social media is probably biased because everybody likes to select what they want and what everybody's got some confirmation bias. But I mean, I think to a large degree, it's got a lot of the Qataris backs up, hasn't it? And I've seen a lot of Qataris posting TikTok videos and Twitter videos saying, you're coming to our country, so, just respect our laws and respect our values. As regards migrant workers, I think it's a good opportunity for them. I don't think they'll get anything better in the way of money spinning opportunities. Actually, improve their condition. This is an opportunity for a lot of migrant workers. They'll get probably get extra hours and extra opportunities. And hopefully not serving alcohol, but all the other associated things that are going on with the World Cup.
Yeah. What do you make of Qatar now? I mean, you haven't lived there for many years, but I mean, a lot of our viewers are of the view that, Qatar do some dodgy stuff, but they're better than the UAE and Saudi. They're not completely sold out to the West and Israel like the UAE, Saudi, Bahrain, and others are. Do you think it's a lost cause? Qatar's a lost cause and it's going the way of UAE and the rest, or is there some hope?
Well, again, it goes back to the point I made at the beginning, where you can't be a prostitute, sell your body, and hope to retain your soul intact. It's just impossible. Once you submit, the most fundamental of things, which is your freedom, which is what the Arab rulers have done, then we know that everything else and worse things follow. So it's not, it's not just political control. Then you get cultural demands being made. And then they bring in the instruments of human rights to beat you up with and say, right, well, why don't you do what we do in the West? Why don't you liberalize? I mean, obviously there are certain things that we can rightfully criticize the countries for. For example, the slow take-up of labor reform and everything else. But when it comes to the fundamental Islamic values, eventually, I mean, they're going to come under pressure like the Saudis have done, and everybody else who is every other country that's a vassal state has done, and they're going to be pressurized to comply. This is just the nature of the beast.
I'm not going to let you go without talking about the footy, but I'll actually might ask Sheikh Takir to come back in. Any thoughts on what Faisal has said, Sheikh Takir?
Yeah, no, I completely understand where he's coming from and what he's saying. There's an interesting comment someone made. Doing dawah is part of our mission, so we should embrace what's going on. The Holy Quran says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah." Dawah should be done with wisdom. Now, someone said to me a long time ago, "Look, I'll discuss Islam, but only over a pint of beer." So what do? We this is completely true. We compromise our principles so we can do dawah. No, we do dawah within our principles, with wisdom. And there are plenty of ways to do dawah. As I said, the greatest sunnah of all the prophets was community work, was helping the sick, helping the needy, at the same time preaching tawheed. Now, 300 billion can go a long way. To solve world poverty for 2 years, you can spend that money. And I tell you what, if you spend that money in welfare and charity and helping, a lot of people become Muslims just because you've shown them love and help and sympathy. And you've helped them in their lives and helped their families and saved lives. They'll become Muslims. A lot of people became Muslims because the Prophet ﷺ showed them love and help. He didn't leave anybody to struggle and suffer. He helped the weak and the needy. And he was well known for this before he announced himself as prophet. And we've lost the basics of Islam in this. We have adopted the West's mindset where we choose dunya above akhirah. I'm not saying we can't enjoy dunya, but do you know, let me tell you when this hit me. I was watching a Manchester United European Cup final. They were losing 2-0. This is ages and ages ago. And it was time for Maghrib, okay? And I said, look, okay, the match has got 5 minutes left. I'm going to read Maghrib. I read my Maghrib. I came back, and they won 3-2. You probably, if you look back, you might remember it. A person my age.
So it's your fault, Sheikh Tokyo. I'm a Liverpool fan. It's your fault.
I wasn't watching because I supported United. But at that point I said, you know what? Islam has to be first. This is just rubbish.
Sheikh Taki, I have a question for you that just sprung to mind. I mean, people like myself are probably watching a heck of a lot of football during the next month. Do you have any advice for us, football fanatics? Might be neglecting other stuff.
No. As long as you're an Islamic fanatic, you can be other fanatic as well. As long as Islam has your priority.
Careful.
There is no harm. There is no harm in having a hobby or having an interest. There's no harm in having that. The prophets, in the Prophet's time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, people used to race camels, race horses, have wrestling matches. There's no harm, but they were always in context, and they always had the position. They didn't take over their entire lives and become a religion. Our religion is clear for us, okay? That the problem we've got is we're surrounded by this mindset, and we're beaten with it every single day. It's almost like a drug, and so as children we adopt this mindset. And we have to relearn what it's like to be a Muslim. And that's what the Arabs need to do. And we all need to do that.
Faisal, let me come back to you. The footy. You've been watching any of the footy? What do you make so far? What do you make of the Muslim teams, especially?
Yeah,
and England.
Let's not talk about
you support England?
No, I don't. I've always wanted, I mean, for the last few tournaments, I've always wanted one of the outsiders to lift the trophies, especially somebody from Asia or Africa. You know, it's I think it's long overdue now. Yes, I've been taking a keen interest. Obviously not watched every game, but really delighted to see the Saudis
Saudi Arabia beat Argentina.
beat Argentina yesterday
Japan beat Germany, didn't they?
and Japan beat Germany. And in fact, I mean, I was really pleased they did it in the end, even though Germany have two Muslim players in Gundogan and Rudiger in the team, but just because of the protest they made, LGBT protest they made at the beginning of before
Allah
the game.
punish them.
Allah Alam, but yeah. So I mean, I was incandescent. I was incandescent when I saw that. I mean, you know, it's one thing believing in something. I mean, but to actually go to another country where this is outlawed and they have a completely different outlook on sexuality, and to try and rub it in their faces, I mean, it's the height of disrespect. It's the height, you know, it is the height of disrespect, and the arrogance and the arrogance of the West to not recognize that this is, you know, some kind of a cultural imposition that we're making on a foreign country. It just defies belief, Roshan. I mean, I'm sick of back teeth. I think one thing this World Cup has done, and it exposed quite clearly, you know, the double standards in operation, you know, when it comes to Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries. We saw this in Russia in 2016 when they hosted the World Cup. I mean, you know, most of the Russian population being Orthodox Christian, Russian Orthodox Christians are anti-homosexuality. In fact, they've got anti-homosexuality laws there as well. But, you know, nothing like the level of
vitriol, vilification.
Was made about that.
We all know the difference. The difference is Qatar's Muslim, right? So that's what's underlying it all. That's what makes it go a step further. Okay, brothers, I'm going to move on to the second topic, if that's all right. Again, you're welcome to stick around. I can see Yusuf Patel in the background waiting patiently. So let me introduce the second topic tonight. You can keep, brothers and sisters, keep your comments coming in, and you can talk about both topics tonight as well. But we are going to move on because we all saw that viral video, didn't we, this week of Wood Green Academy in Wednesbury, which is near Walsall in the West Midlands. I went the other day, actually. And what we had was the gay Muslim activist, Karkan Qureshi, being invited in by the school to address Muslim pupils, and we saw those Muslim pupils push back against what he was saying. He was basically saying that the Quran doesn't outlaw homosexuality, it's okay to be gay and Muslim, and then that led to a bit of a dispute, and then after that some of the pupils were disciplined. The police were called over certain social media videos. There is speculation that the incident was reported to prevent. Now, the school have told me today that it wasn't, but I have seen evidence of the head teacher sending out a communication clearly saying that the school is to prevent. So I'm a little bit confused. I'm going to try and get to the bottom of this. I made a correction to an article I wrote, but I'm thinking now maybe the school is not being completely straight with me. But I will get to the bottom of that in the days to come. But before we go on and get Yusuf Patel on, let's have a quick look at a little bit of the controversial video that went viral and sparked this whole controversy.
Yeah, you said it's your own journey. Why is he advocating this to young people, young Muslims who are still learning their religion? You're advocating the wrong thing. Do you agree that being gay and Muslim is wrong?
No, I don't agree with that.
So you are telling the younger years wrong information. First you said that there's no version of the Quran. Now you're saying there is version. And then you said you can't be gay in Islam. And then you said
I didn't say you can't be gay. That came from...
You said no. So now you're saying you can be gay in Islam. You're telling people, first of all, okay, you be gay, yeah, it's fine, that's okay, you do what you want. But if you're telling other people to do your sin, don't you think that's wrong?
Okay,
but he's not telling anyone.
Okay, it's in terms with this. What do I need to do? So in order to get answers for myself, I read the Quran, I read the Bible to see what does it say about homosexuality. And as far as I'm concerned, in my research, there isn't anything in the Quran that says homosexuality is a sin. And so for me, there's nothing wrong with you know the story about what they do.
It's not homophobic. Right, you need to come to my office.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
I bet that no one back to you. It's homophobic.
It's not homophobic.
That is homophobic.
You allow a gay Muslim
that is homophobic. I will not have this conversation
to
now.
tell lies.
Shut up and listen. I don't care. I've had enough. We live in a diverse and tolerant country. We are tolerant of different religions. 21 years ago, a group of Muslims smashed airplanes into buildings to kill thousands of people. At that stage, people stood up and said, no, we must not condemn Muslims for what a few have done, because we are a tolerant society. And that means, okay, we may not like some things that you say, but you do have the right to say them. But tolerance is two ways. We respect the right of people to worship the way they want. But in this country, we also expect people to allow people to live the way they want.
Okay, so that was the video from Wood Green Academy in Wednesbury. Let's get Yusuf Patel on now, inshallah, to react to that. Assalamu alaikum, Yusuf. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. I'm good. How are you, Roshan? How are you,
Yeah,
Sheikh
alhamdulillah,
Takir?
Yusuf, I'm really good. And thanks for coming on today. Let me introduce you first of all. So Yusuf Patel, I'm sure many of you guys will recognize Yusuf. He is the founder of SRE Islamic, which provides advice, support, and training to parents concerned with how sex and relationship education is being taught in schools, particularly at primary schools. And Yusuf's joining us, I think, from East London today.
Yes.
Yusuf, actually, I'm going to go to Sheikh Takir before I come to you, because I know Sheikh Takir has to leave. So maybe I'll get a quick final thought from you, Sheikh Takir, in relation to what's going on in that school.
Yeah, before I go, thank you very much for inviting me. But after my comment, I'm going to leave with your permission. Look, well done, the pupils. Well done for speaking out. Okay, excellent. It shows that the attempted brainwashing that's going on hasn't really worked. We choose to silence ourselves. Okay, nobody's silencing us. So just bear that in mind. And just a final point: if you promote homosexuality and say it's Islamic, and say there's nothing wrong with it, say the Quran doesn't forbid it, you are no longer in Islam. It is a qati principle, which means it's completely clear. You can't argue with it. You can't. It's like Tawheed is one God. There's no discussion. There's no argument. There are certain things that are clearly haram. The people of Lut were destroyed because of this practice. How much more evidence do you want than that? Everybody knows, and the Bible says the same thing. And I've done videos and I've done discussions on this. This young lad is completely deluded and completely wrong, and he's just making up a load of pack of lies. So well done the pupils, and well done people who are actually inquiring about this, finding out what's going on, and putting the school to task, making the school accountable. Absolutely.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
And I'm going to see you soon, aren't I? So
Inshallah.
I look forward to that, inshallah, meeting you in person. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Okay, that was Sheikh Takir. Let me come to Yusuf now. And Yusuf, you can see my friend Faisal Bodhi on screen from Preston. Faisal is a journalist and a longtime friend of mine. But I'm going to pose the questions to you. Yeah, your reaction to that video and events in Wood Green Academy.
Yeah, first I'd like to echo what Sheikh Takir mentioned, that, to see young Muslims stand up to teachers, stand up for their Islamic values in that way, it's so heartening. Everybody was united upon, wow, this is excellent, because we always hear that the whole prevent environment has stifled the ability of young Muslims to express their Islamic sentiment, and especially on controversial type issues like this. But to see them speak out like this is really great to see. That was the first thing that came to my mind. The second thing that came to my mind is that, look, you've got a teacher saying that you can say what you want, we're a tolerant society, and then he's saying shut up. Yeah, so that's like, how could the irony of that shouldn't be lost on anybody. So you say what you want, as long as what you say is in line with what we want you to say. It's a reflection of the way these things are tackled in schools, because I hear this all the time. I got a call from a parent yesterday to say, look, this school that my child attends, they're completely quiet about Palestine. They refuse to entertain any discussion about Palestine. When it comes to the FIFA World Cup, they're arguing that, you know, because of the stance of Qatar against LGBTQ issues, we're going to also have a ban on any talk about the World Cup in the school. So I think the fact that Muslim pupils are pushing back against the very narrow view of equality that schools try to enforce is great. But I think the point is that we've got to really empower our children, and we've got to also encourage our parents to push back against a lot of this agenda much more than they do presently.
You know, Yusuf, I went to a meeting in a local masjid in Wednesbury just a few days ago. And alhamdulillah, it was a good meeting. But I did get a sense that parents were a bit intimidated by what had gone on and bewildered and scared. And there was some resistance, and there even is now, to talking about the LGBT issue. Because for me, this is all about the spread of, you know, LGBT ideology in schools, and that being kind of forced onto Muslims in an attempt to change our deen. This is the crux of the issue. But the members of that meeting, they didn't really want to talk about LGBT at all. They were talking about safeguarding, getting very legalistic. Is that the right policy, or what advice would you give to empower parents and kids faced with this situation?
I think with the case in Wednesbury with Wood Green Academy, I think there's a slight difference to obviously the visit by Khan Qureshi was the thing which spilled everything out into the open and brought everything out with the children, the young people at the sixth form, filming various interactions with the teachers. But I think when I speak to parents there are wider issues at play there. Yeah. So it's not just that this man is invited every year to speak at the school for the last few years. But what's also the case is that Muslim children are prevented from praying in the sixth form. There's no prayer space that they've been given. When they want to speak about issues like Palestine, they're stifled. The school represents, when they have events around issues around Israel and Palestine, it's very much weighted in favor of the Zionist perspective on the issue. So I think what parents believed is that this is one of a number of issues that indicate how much the school is basically it's just presenting one view on a whole host of issues and not taking into account the background of the pupils or the students they're meant to serve. So in this example, I can understand why the parents want to take a wider view on this issue. So it's not just about the inclusion of Khan Qureshi. It's a wider issue. But in schools generally, I think parents have got to be less concerned about how they are perceived by the school, because the more we self-censor, the more we more we hold back from accounting schools and hold them to account when they do things like this, the more we give permission to schools to do things like this.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't want to talk about LGBT at all. They didn't want to name the. I mean, I thought that was going too far personally. I've had a bit of a disagreement with them over this. What are your views? Am I wrong, or you know?
I think there is a big issue here. There's a concern that, look, if we talk about these issues, we talk about LGBTQ, we're going to be labelled as homophobic.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
it. That's right.
And so we don't want that to happen. And I think the problem with that is, look, you've got the students who are very happy to speak about this issue, and they didn't feel any hang-ups and speaking about this issue and being very forthright on this. And I just say, every time I look at those videos, I think, wow, alhamdulillah, excellent. You really are a fantastic group of people. May Allah give you tawfiq to continue what you do. But I think, with parents, there is generally some feeling of, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to be labeled because, there's a perception that the LGBTQ lobby are more powerful than they actually are. Yeah, there's this idea that they run. This idea there's like a conspiracy theory. They run everything. They say to the politicians, the elected politicians, you need to do this, and they do it, which is not the reality. Yeah, we give them power that they don't wield, and by us giving them that power, they wield extra power. So I think what we got to do is, we got to push back against. Like there's issues in schools at the moment where I walked into a secondary school just a few months ago. A school which has 80% Muslim children, boys and girls, a secondary school. I walked through the corridors and I was amazed. Every single classroom had an LGBT flag. It wasn't LGBT History Month. It wasn't Pride Month. You couldn't say it's just because of that. No, these are permanently within the schools. There's a massive flag in the corridor. It was almost as if the LGBTQ lobby had colonized the school and is staking its claim on this belongs to us and your children belong to us. So I think we've got to push back against it. Sometimes when I speak to parents about this, there is like, oh, we don't really want to do that. We're going to be labeled. The reality is, the problem is that this exacerbates the problem because our children are growing up in a society where all of these messages are normalized. And so when there's no pushback from anybody about this, then it's going to be, it's natural for our children to grow up believing these relationships are normal. And I speak to maktab teachers all the time, teachers who teach Quran to children after school. And they tell me that the children in the class push back against them if they say anything against the LGBT lobby. Now, the idea of the practice of same-sex relationships, and they say anything negative about that, it's the Muslim children who are some of the children who argue, no, that love is love. They've got the right to love who they want to. We shouldn't interfere in their choices. They're using liberal criteria and norms in evaluating relationships, which shows that we as a community have created a situation where our children do not understand our position on these issues. And they've adopted liberal secular norms around these issues.
So it's up to us to educate our children.
It is.
Really
and
is.
Part of that is pushing back in schools. So what I said to parents when I spoke to them, the parents were saying, "Look, this is unacceptable. What's happening in that school." I said to parents, "How do you know this is not happening in your school, your children's school?" Yeah. Okay. We can all be angry about what's happening in Wednesbury because sometimes it's quite easy to look at things that we're removed from and say that's really bad. But how do we know that outside speakers are not attending our children's secondary schools and speaking about these issues? Unless we speak to our children say to us, look, somebody attended a school today and he said this, we're never going to know. But rather than wait for that situation to arise, we should go to the school and say, give me a list of external speakers that you invite in the school that talk to my children about sex relationships and LGBT. Yeah, name the individuals and organizations, and then you can start an interaction with the school and pushing back against some of these agendas. And the issue is, a lot of the time, these speakers, like some of the parents were saying, when I spoke to one of the parents in Wednesbury at the beginning, the first week, a couple of days after it happened, he was saying to me, look, why they could have invited somebody who comes from the LGBT community to speak about that, but they on purpose chose somebody with brown skin who identifies as Muslim, because that sends a different message to the children. That's more indoctrination than anything else. And the thing is, a lot of the time
you would have had Yusuf, just to cut you off. So you wouldn't have had a massive objection if they just invited, a gay person in to talk about his experience being gay. The really incendiary aspect of this is that they were trying to say it's okay to be gay and Muslim.
That's right. That's the problem. The issue is, this Kakan Qureshi. Look, imagine in this school if they'd invited somebody off the street who's a social media influencer to speak about COVID, and this person came in and said, COVID is a big hoax. Yeah, they put microchips through those injections in your body. Now, some people would push back and say, what expertise does this person have to speak about this issue? Similarly. What expertise does Kakan Qureshi speak about Islam? Some of the children were saying to him at that event, at that session, can you say the Shahada? And he was like, what do you mean? Is that if somebody doesn't know what the Shahada is, how can you ask them for their scholarly opinion about an issue such as same-sex relationships in Islam? It's utterly ridiculous.
Can I bring Faisal in here? I think you have a view on this, Faisal. What's your take? Are you there?
First of all, the first time I've seen Brother Yusuf in person. I'd like to meet him one day. He's been a great resource for me, some of the articles I wrote on the subject. Congratulate him on the fantastic work he's doing. He's, amongst the few people in the Muslim community spearheading the pushback, and Allah, more strength to your elbow, Brother Yusuf.
Exactly.
It's quite a proud moment for me to see students doing in the classroom what, to a large extent, their parents have been too shy or too fearful of doing, and pushing back against this gay gay rights agenda. So, you know, and I think that video there exposed how, you know, the language of human rights or universal human rights and gay rights is being used really as a vehicle to indoctrinate our kids with Western liberal secular values. And that's, you know, that it's, you know, it's an uphill battle. I know we as a community are going to have to wage against society, whether we like it or not, you know, and whatever the consequences are. I mean, too often in local groups and WhatsApp groups, I come across resistance from Muslims, you know, on the grounds of, well, we live in their society, we've just got to take it on the chin, you know. No, we can't go against them, you know, what do you expect, blah blah blah. And you know, the landscape, the political landscape, or the landscape for Islamic activists or Islamic social activists, Muslim social activists, has changed remarkably from, you know, when I was in my 20s, let's say, or in my teens. And these days, what we find is, you know, partly as a result of the prevent agenda, partly as a result of the, you know, wider demonization of the Muslim community around the wars on terror and everything else, is that people are self-censoring, like the Yusuf said, and because they've become cowed by the fear of the consequences, you know, whether that's, you know, consequences for their positions, their work, their in the community, you know, they might be blackballed, they might face their financial consequences. So, you know, their kids might face consequences in schools. They might not get on. They might, you know, they might fall foul of a racist teacher or so on. But, you know, it's about time everybody in the Muslim community put their heads above the parapet and said, we're not going to tolerate this. You know, you're taking us for a ride. These are our values. You know, we do not share the same liberal ethos that you did, you know, that you do. You know, our ethos is based or originates in our values, which are God-given. You know, they do not center around the individual, which, you know, and, you know, we don't subscribe to what you call universal values. And they talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You know, I mean, I was on radio with an Amnesty activist, and you know, and she says, yeah, well, everybody, you know, has signed up to Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Well, not everybody has, but I mean, I don't remember seeing anything in there about gay rights. There's rights for family, rights for freedom, you know, rights not to be enslaved, you know, rights not to be tortured. And there's nothing about gay rights in there. And, you know, what are these universal human rights that you're talking about? They were universal in what sense are they universal? Liberalism isn't universal. Liberalism is a philosophy. You know, it's you know, first of all, in the name of liberalism, at the same time that liberalism was being outlined, its main ideologues were propounding the theory of liberalism. The West engaged in, you know, raping and pillaging and plundering half the known world and enslaving them. You know, first then.
I think you're breaking up a little bit, Faisal. So I think I'll move back to Yusuf.
And the other thing is,
Faisal, do you want to rejoin the stream, because you've broken up?
This is just beyond belief. Right, sorry. So as the very fact that they brought on a supposedly Muslim expert to a school just shows that, you know, the brazenness with which they think they can do this now. Yeah. You know, I think they really believe that the Muslim community is there for the taking. This is one of the wider aims of Prevent. I've always said, and I've written extensively about Prevent, that it is about dragging Muslims kicking and screaming to liberal values. That's all it is, and gay rights is one of those. And, you know, if we don't resist, if we don't push back, we don't challenge the status, what's happening, we will find that within a generation or 2 or 3 generations, our youth, our youngsters will be lost. You know, so it's we do need, as Brother Yusuf said, education starts at home. So regardless of what the mainstream media and what mainstream education and everybody else is teaching, we need to inculcate in our kids that these are the Islamic values that we that we subscribe to, and these, we're not gonna waver from these. We're not gonna be deviated or diverted in any way or deflected from these values. And honestly, it was I got a lot of stick from some people on a WhatsApp group that I'm a local WhatsApp group that I'm on. But some people even went as far as to say that journalists and media networks like 5 Pillars are just making the situation worse, and the Muslim community and people like Yusuf making the situation worse, and people should be taking the lead from them. And sometimes I just I don't know whether it's a cop out, or I don't know whether they genuinely believe it, but somebody has to lead that
we just
fight.
need to be.
I'm glad we've got people like you and Brother Yusuf doing it. I've said enough now. I could go on for hours on this issue.
Yeah, I know you already have, to be honest, but
sorry.
But I can be rude to Faisal. I know him well. So it's like yesterday. Obviously, the Muslim community, like any community, we have different views in it. So I don't expect every Muslim to love 5 Pillars, and clearly there's a minority who don't. But I personally think that we've got to stand up for our deen. We're being assailed from all sides. Now is not the time for cowards. Now is the time to stand up, and we've got to make a decision. Are we here in this country to have a big car, have a big house, have a comfortable lifestyle, or are we here to kind of basically live our deen, because it's under threat? So now is not the time to cower under rocks like cowards. Now is the time to stand up. Yeah, no matter what the consequences. That's how I feel about it, and that is how 5 Pillars goes about things. So I make no apologies, and I really feel as though people who call us the Muslim Daily Mail and sensationalists, and they can never back it up with actual facts. Because when I ask them to back it, if you're going to throw those accusations around, back it up. Tell us what we're doing wrong. But that's when they run away. That's when they run away and hide under a rock, because they can't back it up. So I make no apologies whatsoever. We will keep doing what we're doing. And alhamdulillah, we have the support of the vast majority of the ummah. And more importantly, we have the support of scholars in this country who are backing us 100%. So after that rant, let me go back to Yusuf. I'm going to wrap up both Faisal and Yusuf, because you've been on for a long time. I know you have to go. Any final thoughts, Yusuf? Homeschooling. Some people are saying we should take our children out of schools, and homeschooling is the future for Muslim children.
Well, I think the reality is we'll always have the majority of Muslim children educated within the state system. Yeah. And you always have a minority either in Muslim schools or in home educated. Yeah. There'll always be a small minority in those. But I think if parents can and have the ability to do that, they should look at alternatives to the state education system. But I think whatever we do, we just stop having as much trust as we do in the state education system. Sometimes we believe that we're sending our children into those schools, and everything they teach our children is for the betterment of our children. And as Faisal mentioned, we live in a society where these teachers in these schools believe that their values are universal and default values which everybody should adopt. They believe that their values are superior to all other value systems, and that we are still being held back by these archaic, these conservative, these Victorian values that most people have outlived. But I think we've got to recognize that the education system in this country, just as a society in this country, does damage to our children, and that we've got to have our eyes open to that fact, try and repair as much of that as possible, engage in conversation, discussions, live the values that we want our children to adopt, and really don't. I'll give you one example as our end. I was with Dilly in the five pillars of Ramadan, and I did a little presentation around problems happening in our community and how we're sleepwalking. One sister watched that and said, "Oh, this is quite interesting," and then she just carried on with her life. In her family, one of the children in her family then identified as gay and left home and said, "Look, this is my life now." And she said, "Look, at that time, I didn't realize how important that was until it affected my own family." Yeah. And so sometimes, and I hope it doesn't take for us to be affected in our own families by this agenda for us to wake up. But we've got to recognize that this is going to engulf many families. There's many children who are identifying as gay, who are saying, I'm a boy, I want to be a girl, I'm a girl, I want to be a boy, or just totally saying, look, I don't have any faith in Islam, I have doubts about Islam, I don't believe in Allah. It's fundamentally we're seeing the impact of this society. But my point is that we can't wait until these crises hit our homes before we act. We've got to have a more proactive approach to that as well, inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Yusuf. Both Yusuf and Faisal, please feel free to leave if you need to, because I'm going to go to the public now. But you're also very welcome to stay as well, by the way, I should say that. Let's go to Brother M. Can I call you Muhammad? What's your name, brother? And where are you calling from?
London. So I just want to ask regarding, for example, parents, when it comes to the LGBT issue, what do you think is the best advice for parents to, in a way, like retaliate? For example, can they send them to private tuition or something like that?
Yusuf?
Yeah, so the thing is, your children in this country, the law doesn't require for them to go to a school. Yeah, that's not the law. The law just says that they have to receive an appropriate education, and that includes home education. So you can teach them at home. You don't have to go through the curriculum as it is. It can be much more flexible in that. So you don't have to you don't have to follow the rules, the institutionalized rules of the system. You can have alternative ways of approaching these things. And actually sometimes I got a message from a brother who said, look, my wife's plan to have our first child, and the child, like us, will probably be autistic. What do you advise? And there's a research that came out recently, and I've seen this in anecdotal examples, that children who are autistic are more easily swayed into adopting strange, the positions that are more extreme. So you find that amongst autistic children, they're more likely to be affected by the LGBT agenda and identify as gay or transgender or whatever. And so I said, look, you need to really think about whether you want to put your child at risk in the education system, and really think about other alternatives, like home education being one of them. And you can get tutors in, you can support your children to understand and be educated in a much more holistic way without going through the factory system or the state education system. So absolutely, there's plenty of alternatives to that model, and a lot of Muslims
just in the case of just in the case of the context of the UK, do they require, like, for example, like someone like from the council or something to visit you? Because I've checked I don't know if this is correct, but according to the government website, someone comes into to supervise or something like that, or is that true?
No, the thing is that there's always, in every local authority, there's a statutory duty to have a group of people, a team that oversee home education. Now, if your children go to a state school and you deregister them, you take them out, now you will be visited by somebody. But the thing is, you don't have to have these visits. You can say to them, there's no reason for them to visit you. You can say, I'll provide you a report, and you provide a report on what you're doing. And they don't have to say that you are your education. They don't have to. They're not there to inspect. They're not like inspectors like Ofsted. They're just there to ensure that they perceive your education is up to standard. That's not. You don't have to follow the national curriculum. You don't have to say, I'm going through this curriculum. No, you just have to show them that you're providing your children an appropriate education. So I think, most of the time, if the local authority doesn't know of your existence, they'll never visit you. If, for example, they know you're home educating, you don't have to even register with the council. But more than likely, if your children are in schools and you take them out, they will visit you. Otherwise, they will not know of your existence.
Just one more last question. In the case of France, for example, from what I understand, the homeschooling is banned. So, what do you think of this? Or
that's a wide topic. Obviously, France is a situation there for Muslims is quite difficult at the moment. Anyway, with the fact that they've arrested a lot of people, they've shut down Muslim organizations. There's a lot of problems happening in France and other European countries. But I think there are real problems in France, and so they want children in the education system so that they can culturally shape them. But I think from our perspective in this country, we've got different rules. So I'd say that we should take advantage of the situation we have here. and make dua for our brothers throughout Europe who are going through much more difficult situations, inshallah.
Brother, Jazakallah khair for having the guts to come on. Any final thoughts before you leave?
No, it's fine. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let's go to Sister Maria. I think it's the same Sister Maria that has written a few articles for us, is it?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sister.
Yes, it's that Sister Maria who's
a pleasure to speak to you for the first time in person. And thanks for coming on. What would you like to say, Maria?
I think I just wanted to ask, really. I think currently the issue is LGBTQ in schools, where obviously they're trying to push the ideology down our children's throats. And I think that people have responded by saying that we should stand up as Muslim parents and, stand up and say that they can't be doing that. But is it that we think that they're just going to stop there? Because say we resolve this LGBTQ issue, I'm sure that something else will come up in society and then they'll probably be pushing that down our children's throats. So is that really a long-term solution for the Ummah? And I personally feel that it's not. And I think that it's quite easy, actually, to just stand up and say, no, don't do that. We're not going to tolerate it. And that's just really scratching the surface. I feel like there's far deeper issues with Muslims and everything that we basically stand for. And it may be LGBTQ now, but maybe in generations to come or the next generation, it's just going to be another issue. Maybe it'll be, God knows how this country's going to turn out in the next generation. It may well be just a completely different issue that will be against Islamic morals and ethics and values, and they'll just still be trying to put that down our throats. So I just want to say that my personal opinion, and I'm not, I have two young children, but neither of them actually attend school just yet. My eldest is just 2. But obviously, as a parent, I have to think about what I want to do with my children. And personally, I feel like homeschooling is the way. But then we're faced with this dilemma I want to educate my children myself. But then there's a dilemma of the fact that, in the country that we're living in, both parents currently need to work. Like the situation is such that in a lot of households, both parents need to work. So if I stop working, then maybe that would have a significant impact on, the money that my family has every month. So I just feel like we've been screwed over by the system. And I want people to really think about that we have been screwed over by the system, because we're in a situation where both parents need to be working, so therefore the kids have to be sent into schools. And I think that's because we've gone into this framework with whatever the West want to do. But Islam has already set a framework of how families should be. And that is that I'm speaking from a woman who I'm basically educated myself. I'm a healthcare professional. I went to a top university, and I've worked the 9 to 5 and everything. Essentially, I've worked really hard, and I just feel like it's not actually all that for women, and women really should think about their place in society and look at things, because for the future, for our children, we probably need to be at home to teach them everything that we know. And if we have skills like being good in certain subjects, then we should use that for our children and basically homeschool them where we can and let our husbands go out to work. And I think I would really like it if Muslims did sort of follow that way. And that's everything I stand for, essentially, that Muslim women stay at home more, and they should basically homeschool their children where they're able to. So if you have the intellectual ability to do that, then you should do that. Let your husbands go out to work. And that way we keep our children safe. And when they do go out to the world, because they inevitably will, they will hopefully go out with taqwa instilled into them, and then they'll be able to handle their affairs themselves.
Yeah. So just in response to that, I think Jazakallah khair for your comment. I completely agree with you in terms of from the first comment you made, that LGBT is not the be-all and end-all of everything. It's the current fad. It's the current thing that parents are concerned about. But fundamentally, I think what we need to do in instilling of our children, when I speak to children in different parts of the country, when we have events and presentations, and I ask them, why are you Muslim? The main answer we get from children is because my parents are Muslim. So we are creating a generation of children who grow up to be adults whose foundation is so weak that it's based upon imitation. We haven't developed their ability to answer the question, why are you Muslim, in a coherent way. Yeah, and our foundation is built upon very strong, very strong stuff. And I think we need to focus on that as being our key, the key thing we invest in our children, as well as the issue of ensuring that our children feel loved in the home. So these two things, I think, are very key. But I think for your second question, is living in a capitalist society, the way society is structured is not conducive to strong families, because the expectation is that both parents go out to work and people are employed to look after your children. So the people who are employed to look after your children are given greater value than if you were at home looking after your own children. So the mother who looks after her children at home is considered to be not that important, not someone who's not productive, someone who's not providing anything for the economy, but the one who is a childcare, for example, who's in childcare looking after children for children whose parents are at work, is given value. I think this is a problem, but I think we got to think about what is our priorities with regards to our children, because what we invest in them, we will also sow in terms of what we also receive when we're older, and obviously when we pass away. In terms of the greatest investment is the children we leave behind. But I think that's a very important set of points that we need to probably needs a whole session in itself to discuss.
The only thing I'd add to that, Yusuf and Maria, is that I think things are getting worse in this country, and I think we're going down the route of France. We were talking about France a bit earlier on. France, the country I used to live in, know very well, where kind of you're forced to be, their view of secularism is a very uniform view, and everyone has to be French and share French values, and there's no room for diversity. Traditionally, there has been room for diversity in the United Kingdom, and we have to say this, brothers and sisters. But if you talk to any Muslim from Europe, they will say that the environment here in the UK is actually more liberal and a better place for Muslims. And that is generally true, but it's going the other way. And I think, we are going to be seeing Muslim charities shut down for absolutely no reason. In the UK, like in France, Muslim NGOs, already we're seeing shadow bans on social media, our voice being taken away. We're virtually excluded from the mainstream conversation now. Even amongst ourselves, I think there'll be more and more pressure. And we've experienced this with 5 Pillars. So I think people need to lose their naivety. I think we're in for a very tough time in this country. And the only solution is to is Islam, really, to hold tight to the rope of, I think that is our mission in this country, to hold tight to the rope of Islam and to make sure our children do as well. And I think that is the purpose of us being here. So yeah, anything you would like to add, Maria, before we say goodbye?
No, thank you for giving me the space to speak. Thank you.
All right, Jazakallah, Maria. Yusuf, anything you'd like to say before I say goodbye?
I think I'm all talked out now. I think so. I'll leave it up to anybody else who wants to say anything. I've got to go, but Jazakallah, it's been really enjoyable.
Jazakallah, you've said it a lot longer than I expected, so Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, it's been really good.
Yusuf.
Okay,
I'm all on my own. Maybe I can read out a few comments. Let me go back a little bit because I'm a little bit lost with the comments. Yeah, people talking to each other on the wall. Give me a second to find a comment which maybe I can read out. Asma says, women need to know their worth as women in Islam. Unfortunately, a lot of sisters have been indoctrinated to show their worth is only if they can provide materially and be equal to men. I think that's basically what Maria was saying. Okay, let me find one more comment perhaps before I go. So Sar Ali says, Maria, I'm glad that your stay-at-home situation works for you, but a lot of women have no choice but to work. So we should be passing less judgment on them. Also, parenting is not just the mother's role, even from an Islamic point of view. We have a lot of deadbeat Muslim men who go out to work and think that's their job and are emotionally and practically unavailable for their wives and kids. So basically, a woman could be married but living a single parent life. Let's not make parenting, and the comment ends there. So that's probably the view of a lot of Muslim women as well, if I'm honest. Fatima says we need to do dawah and be vigilant, that we may need to prepare for hijrah. a lot more and more Muslims are talking about hijrah. I think perhaps I need to do a show on that at some point. Okay, brothers and sisters, I think we're all talked out. We've been going for an hour and 21 minutes. So I think that's more than enough for a show. So inshallah, I will conclude now. So we had two topics today. We talked about Qatar, the World Cup, and Islam. And I think the consensus was that the price that Qatar as an Islamic nation is paying for this World Cup is too high, Islamically speaking. And the positive aspects, maybe improving the lives of some migrant workers and the dawah that's taking place, is outweighed by the negative aspects. And our second topic, of course, was Muslims having to challenge LGBTQ ideology in schools, which is being forced on us. But generally, we're not confident enough. We don't have the tools to do it. And generally, we're allowing this ideology to be indoctrinated to our kids. And there isn't enough pushback going on. And that's why we were all really proud to see those kids at Wood Green Academy pushing back and challenging the indoctrination. And yeah, generally sticking up for their deen and defending their deen. And it's unfortunate, I think, that the parents, including myself probably, and many Muslim parents in this country, are not as brave as those wonderful kids. Okay, brothers and sisters. So a few points to end before I say salam alaikum, and that is, please keep your donations coming to 5 Pillars. We're going through a cost of living crisis. I think every organization, Islamic organization, has seen donations, direct debits drop off, but ultimately there is barakah in Islamic donations. You're not throwing your money away. You are in fact increasing your money both in this life and in the next. That is what we believe as Muslims. And if you have to make any cutbacks, make it on those takeaways. I myself have cut down on takeaways, and I've cut down on Costa coffees and Starbucks coffees and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that I'm saving at least £100 to £200 a month. So what excuse do we have to cut back on a £5 donation to an Islamic cause or a £10 donation to an Islamic cause when we can cut down on those unhealthy and unnecessary lifestyle options? Also, brothers and sisters, we're trying to boost our newsletter subscribers. So please do subscribe to the 5 Pillars newsletter, which everyone loves, by the way. Everyone says it's wonderful. It's one of the things. We did a survey last year, and the feedback of the newsletter was, it's a really good roundup of the week's news. If you don't have the time to watch and consume 5 Pillars or Islamic news every day, then you can get that email into your inbox once a week, and it's a really good summary of the news, analysis, and opinion that's going on and in the Ummah and also amongst British Muslims here. So please do subscribe to our newsletter. Please do follow all our social media channels, especially our Telegram channel. We're trying to boost the numbers on Telegram. Don't forget, we're under a lot of pressure on social media. One day, these guys, I'm sure they're going to turn the lights off. So we do need to collect your phone numbers and your emails so that we can stay in touch and get to you directly. And that's the way we beat these shadow bans and social media bans ultimately. And please do hold me account. The last thing I will say is please do hold me account. I will try to do this show once every 2 weeks. I could do it once every week probably, but in terms of my schedule and the other work I have to do for 5 Pillars, it's very difficult for me to do it every week. But inshallah, I will do my best to do it every 2 weeks. On that note, I'll finish. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.